Thanks, everybody, and hello. It's so nice to see all of your faces and be here with you tonight. I'm so thankful to have the chance to talk with you. I am gonna just take us back in time about 12 years to a really challenging time in my life, which it's an interesting thing to reflect, like about over a decade ago, when my mom got sick and everything in my life shifted as a result of that. And so I'll just share a little bit about that experience, and then we'll come to the present day and how it links up with all that we do with Women Swimmin and everything we've already been talking about to do with rituals and making meaning in grief. I was living at the time that my mom got sick in India, and I had been there for several years already and had a home and a community there. And my parents lived in Los Angeles, although I grew up here in this area for my younger years, as Laura said. Um, After I graduated from college, my parents moved to Los Angeles from where we had been living before that. And so they had a really lovely community in LA as well, but we obviously lived pretty far apart. And when it became clear that my mom was sick, I came home and just flew back to Los Angeles. And she got a terrible stage 4 diagnosis on the day that I arrived back in the States. Um, and it was an incredible shock for me. Like, my mother had been really healthy and was, to my understanding, was just full of life. And definitely, I wasn't accustomed to seeing her sick or to be in pain. Um, and so it was really a huge shock for me, and I was also away from my husband and away from my community in India, so I felt pretty isolated at the time. And I was really I worked with my father to take care of my mom, but really, he was still going to a full-time job and needing to keep up with all of the things that he had to do in his life. And so I became the primary caregiver for my mom. And I think one of the things that was hardest, as well as the sort of geographical isolation from my community, was the fact that because I was in my 20s, very few of my peers had experienced anything like what I was going through. And so I felt like it was really challenging um, to talk about what I was experiencing. Partly because I was so exhausted and I didn't really want to relive it at the end of a day with anyone. It was too hard to kind of go through step by step what was happening again. But part of it was just, I think, because no one in my life had, or no one my age had sort of, that I knew, had experienced this. And similarly, my parents, because my mother was 60 when she got sick and then 61 when she passed away. And her friends also did not know, I think they weren't kind of ready to face their own mortality and talk to me or her about, or my father about what they were experiencing. So I felt a little bit like we were kind of on this island on our own. Um, and um, so it was a hard time, of course. And but I think that I kept trying to talk about it. I kept trying to bring up conversations with friends, especially I think after my mom did pass away. I wound up needing to talk about what I was going through, and it was the sort of difficulties for me. I had to overcome them and share what I was going through in order to be able to get through it. And through that time, just as Laura was saying, I mean, I think trust is a really key part of that, trusting the people that you're sharing with. And one of the things that I've noticed in the past several years, you know, is that people my age are starting to have similar experiences. And I've had several close friends of mine who've lost family members or friends, or people that they know and love. And I think because I shared with them, uh, when I was going through so much, I have had the experience of many of my community members coming to me and sharing what they're going through with me. And it's been a really interesting and lovely thing. Sometimes this has happened with a couple of my dearest friends who I don't see all that often, and it's not like we talk all of the time. But because of that vulnerability, that I showed, and because of the trust that I had with them, I think then they were able to reciprocate that. And when they needed someone, to listen to their story or to hear what they were going through in a really challenging and grieving moment, they were able to come to me. And so that has really been a beautiful and meaningful thing, for me as a friend, to be able to be there in that kind of way. And I think it has also just deepened, um, all of the friendships around that too, because people can see that we can talk about it, and through talking about what we're going through, we're able to make more meaning. We're able to connect with each other and, share what helps, um, which I think is just a really key part. Um, so fast forward to, 3 years ago, or 4 years ago almost, when I moved back to Ithaca. I was so thankful to see, and learn about Women Swimmin as an event, and about the fact that Hospicare exists in this community, which I think is really a beautiful gift to this town and this area. Um, and uh, because I had experienced, caregiving for my mom, and because our family had been so positively impacted by having hospice services available for our family, in LA, it felt like such a natural and wonderful connection to be able to join, a swim team here, and start across the lake. Um, and what I quickly realized and noticed was that some of the things I had been nervous about in terms of sending out fundraising, social media posts, or writing an email about asking people to support Hospicare, and support our team specifically, it turned out to be just such a lovely thing that I really felt like especially my mom's friends were just so grateful to have a kind of outlet, and a marker for them, and of their friendship, and of they were able to memorialize my mom as well. And so it I feel like the, swim has become just increasingly meaningful for me and for my personal community, just in being able to mark kind of the passage of time, to be able to have a time when we are able to come together, to memorialize my mom, and, um, to be able to really make some true meaning of this loss, where we're able to see, like, how people share memories with me quite often, and share these little tidbits about my mom that I didn't even necessarily know, which has been just a real gift for me. Um, and so that has been a really wonderful component of this. Um, and I also wanted to mention that my kids never met my mom. They were all born after she died, and so they have a real longing to know her. And I think that because we have this space, that's created around Women Swimmin, and this space for the conversation about those we've lost, about what it means to grieve, and what it means to, honor someone's memory, it really has provided me the opportunity too to talk to my kids about my mom in many different ways as well, and gives them this chance to celebrate her too, and feel a bit more connected to her. Because I think, as Laura was saying, culturally, we don't always have that space in American culture. And that was another thing that, I was lucky enough to go back to my home in India, after my mom died, where there were so many fewer cultural barriers around talking about death, and just being really open with my community there, about what I had just gone through. And I think because of that kind of the proximity to death that one has in India, um, and the proximity to just kind of all of the aspects of life, it really was helpful, for me. And so I feel like since moving back to the States, I have wanted to, a be kind of breaking down some of those barriers to talking about grieving.